Hi, I'm Peter Bell, and I'm here with Sharon Alexander, CEO of Sun Summit Minerals, SMN, TSXV. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Nice to meet you for the first time.
Yes, yeah, virtually, but it still works.
Amazing you're on Vancouver Island.
Yes, it's a beautiful place to live for sure. Yeah.
Shout out Duncan, the mining exploration hub of Duncan on Vancouver Island.
Yep, yep. A lot of people end up living here.
Love it. I'm going to click share screen here now, and I've got company pitch deck up, and I also have a document that I made up over 2 years ago now, and wanted to go through this with you a little bit and kind of maybe jump back and forth between this thing and the current company deck, if we could, please and thanks.
Definitely. Yeah, you'll see there's a lot of changes, but I think you were right on a lot of things there, Peter.
Thank you. So, looking back, the Buck property, we're still talking about the same name and land position. Has it increased significantly?
Yeah, it has increased quite a bit, maybe about 30%. It's increased. So we picked up ground surrounding the original tenure. This property is optioned. So Richard Billingsley, a vendor who had previously vended the GT Gold's project that got bought out by Newmont. And so we have expanded our position. We're now at 33,000 hectares. So that's 24 kilometers north to south. A lot of underexplored areas that have never been drill tested. And so that, in addition to what we're finding at the Buck Main area, where you see a lot of the historic drilling and placer camp and the old adits and things like that. So it's a great project.
Shout out Dick Billingsley. Lots of respect for him and all kinds of people involved in this deal. It's really neat.
Yeah.
A who's who of BC exploration.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
that option deal's still alive. You haven't
Yeah,
completed.
yeah. We just passed the third anniversary, so it's our intention to earn in and own the property outright. And what's important to note about the option agreement too is that it's Dick really wanted to have a share position, like that was his main goal, and so he's about an 8% owner
Oh,
or
great.
of the shares. So he really feels strongly about this project and believes that it eventually will be mined, and that's great to have shareholders with such passion about their projects.
Well, and lucky ones maybe too. I'd rather be lucky than good. And
Exactly. Yeah.
amazing that, after 3 years, he would still have, what at first blush sounds like larger of a share position than most project vendors would ever dream of having, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I think getting project vendors who become large shareholders plus 5% numbers over time, I think that's important for good deal structure. Um, and to have that over years,
Yeah.
and balancing out the dilution that comes with the financings and everything. It's really
Exactly.
That's rare. I haven't heard a lot of that. So kudos.
Yeah. Yeah. We really like those sticky shareholders who hold on to the stock. They're in it for the story. And they want to stick around, but yeah, you introduce some flow through, and then you get people that are a bit more.
All of a sudden,
Oh
right?
yeah, but obviously we'd like those shareholders that really believe in the story and are long term. So yeah, I mean, you have this great slide up. Obviously, our tenure position has expanded, but looking at the location, it's just south of the town of Houston. That's about an hour drive from Smithers, which is the closest airport. There's a lot of historic and current projects. So Equity Silver Mine is just to the east, and then Huckleberry Mine to the southwest. That was a copper mine that I believe they're bringing back into production. And then, of course, we have Blackwater, which is to the southeast. Same host rocks, same age, and really, we're using that as a geologic analog. It's very similar, that bulk tonnage style of gold, associated with zinc and silver as well. So
I wonder in the last 2.5 years if there's been other major changes. I guess you mentioned Huckleberry potentially coming back.
yeah.
No, is there any closures or significant other stuff around here or to the south as well too? You're not far from the Caribou Goldfields, right? It's
Yeah. I mean, in terms of a mining jurisdiction, it's pretty, straightforward. It's resource friendly. Permitting is pretty clear cuts. First Nations, with the early engagements, they're on board as well. And so, I mean, it's a really great region. This area has seen mining before, so people have been employed in the mining industry. It's just they're really used to having resource extraction, whether it be forestry or the pipeline goes through here as well.
yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And Blackwater, is it still operating right now?
So it was
It's
bought
not.
by New Gold back when you first reviewed this in 2020.
Yep.
It then got purchased by Artemis Gold, and they're now bringing that. It's into advanced development. So they're I would say it would be in production in 2023 by the rate that they're
Wow.
going now. So I mean, they're
Wow.
really ramping things up. So it will be an operating mine, which is fantastic to hear that the economics with a type of project like that works. That bulk tonnage kind of lower grade, as long as you have the size and scale potential there, it works for economics. So that's really great.
I always wondered about the location there. It always seemed relatively further away, but not so far away that it's hard to get to. It's nice kind of mountain plateau up here.
Yeah, it's not like the Golden Triangle where you get these like very steep peaks and helicopter base. Like we can drive right to the drill rig
Yeah.
where we are. I mean, the amount of Forest Service roads and everything in the area, it makes exploration very cost effective. And just a difference to Blackwater and Buck is that they didn't have that infrastructure. They had to build the
Yeah.
road, the power, and all of that. And so that eats into their profits. While with the Buck project, I mean, the infrastructure is already there. We don't, the seasonality is 12 months out of the year. We drill, I would say we most often drill off season and then
Yeah.
do the summer sampling and things like that needs to be done in the summer, and then drill in the shoulder season and the off season. So
Ah,
it's really
wonderful.
been fantastic for exploration.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I remember the first times I poking around here looking and just think like, yes, okay, good place for a mine.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean it's been explored as you mentioned in the past. There was some, the turn of the last century. There was some adits. There was Placer, the Placer camp. Actually, the Placer miner is still, he still works his claim every summer. It's a great area, and then
Yeah.
yeah, it's very underexplored. I mean, a lot of these other targets on the property that we've identified through geophysics, geochemistry, really have never been drill tested, and so there's a
Yeah.
lot of upside.
Yep. And lots of old showings, lots
Yeah,
of old
definitely.
mines of
Yeah,
very size.
yeah.
And I think
Is that Equity Silver there?
I
Equity
don't
Silver Mine?
I don't know.
That probably is. So that was at one point BC's largest silver producer. That was, I think, from 1980 to 1994. Silver, I believe, zinc and gold, or
That
lead.
looks like it. Yeah, because it's
Yeah,
just a bit to the
it's the
north
closest
of.
mine. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, so that one's currently on care and maintenance. I have heard talk that they might bring that back into production. I don't know. I mean, it's a great area. It's the infrastructure, the seasonality. Like it's just a really great area to explore and to mine.
Silver, zinc, lead.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a what a bunch of headwinds, eh? Talk about
Yeah.
tough
And as well
times.
to yeah, I mean, in terms of that was in the 80s.
Yeah.
In terms of Buck itself, there had been historic drilling. Most of the drilling had been done in the 80s and the 90s, but of course the price of gold at that point wasn't what it is today. And so having something that's half a gram, 2 gram per ton gold over several hundred meters still would not have been economic in the 80s.
Yeah.
That work was done a lot by Hunter Dickinson, HDI, like Amart, Quartz Mountain Resources, all of that. So definitely coming back to this project at a different time where the price of gold is, in a better place, and seeing from Blackwater as well going into development that this is definitely, it can be economic.
I had fun reading some of these old reports and seeing stuff done, for Billingsley
Yes.
himself there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a prospector, and he has geologists that go out and do a lot of work. Like he's not just a quiet,
Yeah.
vendor. Like he's very active and he has a lot of other projects. He knows his projects very well. Yeah, and there's been a lot of work that they have been done on the property in the past.
And right off I always wonder about the high grade stuff. Has this Bob Creek area been a priority really since then
In terms of high grade,
for you guys for exploration?
I mean, we are drilling. If you have a map showing kind of the area,
I can jump
um,
over to your deck here. Yeah.
yeah, just go
Yeah,
down
it
a
is
bit.
bigger. It is sure bigger.
It is
Wow.
bigger. Yeah, yeah. So if you stop right there, that's kind of our Buck Main area. And so Bob Creek, it's yeah, where your cursor is, and it's just kind of that horseshoe area there.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we have continued to do drilling in that area. We're over 80 diamond drill holes now in that area. We're currently drilling, so that number is increasing. And so we're finding, especially in that area where your cursor is, that those are those long intercepts. So half a meter to half a gram to a gram per ton gold over like 400 meters right from surface.
Yeah.
So and also when you bring in the gold equivalents, so we have gold, silver, and zinc. We've done some initial metallurgical test work on all of those metals, and the recovery is actually quite good, like in the 90%. And so that's why we felt comfortable including those all into a gold equivalent calculation. So when you take that into account, we're over a gram per ton gold equivalent over several hundred meters. I mean, it's all right there. It's this big hydrothermal package, altered, a lot of fluids coming through it. Everything's been pervasively altered, and that's that disseminated style of mineralization. But to talk about the high grade, a bit further to the west, so not exactly in the canyon where the creek
Yep.
is, but we did find some more vein and veinlet hosted gold. So half a meter of 250 gram per ton gold, and then a meter and a half of close to 50 gram per ton gold. So those grades had never been seen, previously, apart from when they were, doing some initial exploration and mining in the
Yep.
30s and that.
Yep.
So, I mean, really a lot of mineralization. We're still learning. It's a very complex system. And so every time we step out, we're learning more about the system. So the circles there, you can see we're stepping out to the west and to the east, and as well the north, it's completely open. There's a bit more overburden over there, but you drill through that and there's mineralization under that as well.
And that ultra high grade you hit, that was in a drill core too, right?
Yeah,
Significant.
yeah. So yeah, in 2020, in the fall 2020, we made our first high grade hit. That was our discovery. And then in spring of 2021, that's when we followed up with some additional high grade. But really, I mean, the story here is the bulk tonnage potential. It's that disseminated mineralization. Anything we get in the high grade is definitely exciting and great to have. But these little veins aren't really continuous. So if we hit them, that's great. But really, this is a bulk tonnage story. It's disseminated mineralization at that size and scale. We're up to a kilometer strike length already, and we're stepping out to increase that.
Well, and one of the things I always look for is fat tails. If you can see some of those real high grade kicks, then I don't know, it gives me some kind of a statistical sense of that there's more mass, you're more likely to have things come out the way
Yeah.
bigger system size, stuff like that, that
Yeah, and I mean,
maybe.
there's lots of different rock types. There's a lot of structures and faults and shear zones. So and there's been a lot of fluids, and it's very likely that there's additional mineralization. When you have two structures kind of coming together, that could act as kind of like a trap. It's a very complex system, but that's a great thing to have when you're looking for mineralization.
And it looks like there's fairly high zinc response in the soils down here too.
Yeah, yeah. Keeping
So,
in mind that, there has been glaciation in this area, so we really
yeah.
want to make sure we know the source of the mineralization, but the geochemistry, the surface geochemistry is very promising. And in maps where we zoom out, it continues that geochemical anomalies that really continues.
But we're already into conceptual pit shapes, really.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
so
at least for the forward-looking investors, right? Maybe not the company, but you know, I can look here and think about, okay, now if I take that 300 meters and I talk about a 600-meter diameter, a 300-meter depth, is that a good pit shape? I
yeah,
don't. That's a big
exactly.
pit. I don't know how
Yeah,
many tons is that.
we're not quite there, but
Those kinds of
definitely
calculations are
thinking
gathering
about
more
it.
steam, though. People are doing that kind of stuff more and
Yeah,
more, right? Quentin Hennig made a with that snow SGD snow line story,
snow line.
a
Yep.
few holes on the edge of a shape, and then talk about the whole shape and the
Yeah,
billion tons that comes along with it. You know,
yeah,
those kind of it's those are very dangerous calculations, but it's really
they are.
important for people to understand them
Yeah, it is for
because
sure. I mean, things to
they're
keep in mind is you want near surface mineralization, you want continuous mineralization. That's what we have here. But of course, we need the engineers to do the calculations about pit shapes and all that. But you know, we are at the stage where we're thinking, is this something we should put a resource on? And
yeah.
get some of these calculations. We're still, as we step out, we're expanding the mineralized footprint. And so we're very happy to keep drilling. And if you go to the next slide, you can see just how those mineralized envelopes, these aren't grade shells, but you know, every program we've done, we've successfully found additional mineralization. It's near surface, it's continuous, it's very easy to be modeled up. And so even a lot of these holes end in mineralization.
Yep.
So we're open in all directions, including at depth. But of course, for mineability, the near surface mineralization is really key for us, and we're finding that. In our current drill program, we're stepping out to the west and the east. So I would expect the strike extent to increase if we get a lot of the same results that we have been getting in previous programs. So I'm pretty optimistic.
It's a lot of blobs, you know,
A lot of blobs.
the shapes that are added around the kriging methods and stuff that are happening behind the
Yeah,
scenes here. You know,
yeah,
before even talking about grade shells and any of
yeah.
that stuff, just in
And this
terms
is
of
only the mineralization that is continuous. We have
yeah,
kind of isolated blobs that we didn't show on here because, you know, one blob around a drill hole at, you know, 400 meters depth might not be exciting in a mining scenario. So this is just what's continuous and what can be kind of
beautiful.
like this cohesive mineralization. So there's a
A
lot of
great
potential.
start, right? Wouldn't
Yeah,
you say a
exactly.
great start? Like
Very much so.
what a
Yeah,
productive couple years versus
exactly.
you know where it was when I was looking at it here and it
Yeah.
was we're just like you say we're looking at the old HDI stuff from 10 years ago and
Yeah.
beyond that it goes back further and further.
Yeah, HCI ended up doing quite a lot of work. They did geochemistry, so a lot of the surface sampling, the geophysics. So we have quite a lot of geophysics as well, and
Yeah.
that's really helped us. The historic as well as some of the recent work that we've done really helped us zone in on some of these targets.
Well, and yet you're really just focused around this same, you know, like it's a substantial area and you could fit a big project in there,
Oh, for sure.
but
Yeah, and
lots
if you
more.
go to the other further down in the deck, if you go there, so really this spring we put our heads down and we had applied for a property wide exploration permit which would allow us to drill elsewhere on the property.
Yep.
Previously we just had a permit that was around the Buck Main area where all the historic drilling had been, but we applied for this property wide permit and we knew that approval was coming, and so we were really focusing on what else was on this property, what, you know, what other discoveries could be made. There's untapped potential, never been drill tested a lot of these targets. So we did a property wide VTEM geophysical survey, which was a bit delayed, which delayed the rest of our exploration, but that seems to be the story about, you know, post COVID,
Yeah.
you know, getting things your ducks in a row. We did in the summer property-wide surface geochemistry, so soil sampling, silt sampling, rock sampling. We're getting those results in as we speak. And so we came up with a like almost a pipeline of additional target areas. So we know there's something at Buck Main. There's obviously mineralization there. We're continuing to drill and extend the strike length, but what else is there on the property? And from the results of the VTEM and the surface exploration and the mapping, we decided to follow that up with ground IP at two of these targets, so Eagle Eye and Irk. If you look at the ERC target there,
Yep.
the zinc anomaly is just huge. Mind you, it's been, glaciated, and so it's kind of been smeared. So the IP is really going to help us fine tune and delineate these drill targets, so we have a better idea about where the source of this mineralization is. But the zinc anomaly is huge when you look at the size of the red area around Buck Main
Yep.
compared to ERC. I mean, the ERC anomaly is huge. And then as
And
well at Eagle Eye, there was some really promising historic IP that now we're following up with a more recent survey.
well, and again, it's that little bit of a hot spot south of Buck Main on the zinc profile. And again, one of the things looking at this, it reminds me is like the topography was something that I always thought was really important for kind of
Yeah.
guessing at what might be happening. And I seem to remember this one spot as something that kind of stuck out just based on surface features. And then down here at Irk, right, like you're out of the valley a little bit.
Yeah, and you
And
had mentioned as well, like the potential of porphyries. We had thought at different times, Buck Main was, kind of there was a porphyry there. We're not sure. We see evidence of it at depth, but we're not quite sure. There could be other porphyries on the property. And then as well, you had pointed out there's kind of that from Buck Main down through Tower and then Irk, there's kind of this valley which corresponds with a magnetic low. I
yeah,
mean, there's some pretty ancient structures that go through this area
yeah.
regionally, which could have controlled a lot of mineralization as well. So definitely it's tricky. It's a tricky area for our geologists to figure out, but
Yeah.
we're lucky enough to have Christopher Leslie, who is part of the discovery team of the Blackwater Gold Project when he was with
Oh,
Richfield Ventures.
wow.
So he remembers like everything that they did from exploring to discovery, and then eventually got bought out by New Gold. And so all of the exploration techniques they used at Blackwater were using at Buck in terms of the association with zinc to gold.
Yep.
A lot of these using IP chargeability, and which tells you the sulfides in the ground and which would be associated with gold potentially. So yeah, using Blackwater as an analog has really not only showed that this kind of deposit is economic, but also has guided our exploration strategy.
It was a lot of fun looking at Blackwater on Google
Mm,
and then changing the time
yes.
because you'd be like, oh, oh,
Yeah.
wow, look at that. Oh, up there
Yeah.
too. Oh, down there, all the way
Yeah.
over there. Wow, you guys have been busy because it's relatively recent with a lot of these caller locations, I think, as I remember.
Yeah, I think they
And
made the discovery in 2009. And so
right?
it's been fairly quick. And I mean, it could have been quicker. They went through New Gold, and I think,
Of
and
course.
then Artemis Gold. So I mean, it's now going into it's advanced development at this point. So yeah, I mean,
With some big numbers too, with some
there's some big
really
numbers, yeah. So if you look at, so the most recent
yeah,
calculation, proven and probable, was 8 million ounces at 0.75 gram per ton gold. So
yep,
those are really these bulk tonnage grades. We're seeing that at Buck and then some. So and then as well in terms of the size comparison, we're up to a kilometer strike length. That's approximately the strike length of what Blackwater is, at least with the initial drilling. And so we're very comparable, keeping in mind that Buck is open.
and in the end, I seem to remember that this geological model of Blackwater was fairly simple, maybe deceptively so. But yeah, I guess maybe having that new person come on from the old team is helpful with that too.
For
So
sure, yeah. We actually found a lot of these shear zones, and so we've termed it kind of the Buck structural corridor. It's not like single faults, but it's more of I don't have a picture of it,
that's fine.
but maybe if you go back up a few slides, you can see the one just above that. Yeah, so you can see the Buck structural corridor there. It's kind of
Yep.
northwest trending. Most of the faults and fractures are oriented in that direction. There's some
Mhm.
other directions as well, but this is what we think is the major conduit of a lot of these fluids. And so that would be similar to Blackwater as well, is that, structures play an important role, as does rock type. For example, in the less competent rock, you'll get kind of disseminated mineralization, like the fluids came and just like a sponge, the rock just kind of absorbed all of that. But in the more competent rocks, you get maybe more vein hosted, the higher grade stuff. So very complicated, but a lot of mineralization here.
Well, and structure, how much does structure impact topography today too, right? Because
Yeah,
erosion
definitely.
follows lines of weakness, follows
Yeah,
contacts and things like that. So,
yeah.
are you anywhere near any kind of 3D geological models, I guess, with all the drilling? Kind of, yes.
Yeah, we
Because,
do have a geological model, and that helps us plan drilling.
yep.
Of course, every time we drill, that has to be updated. It's not,
Oh, yeah.
with our current drill spacing, we're not at the point where it's 100%, but definitely we use that to guide our targeting. The section that I have was probably the best kind of
Yep.
outline of what that is, but we're discovering more zones of this disseminated style of mineralization, so that it's hosted in more of these breccias and volcanic tuffs and things like that. So the yellow there, that is the more that more porous rock. It's volcanic. It has a lot of breccias in it. Really interesting rock. That's all pervasively altered. So we see it in the matrix of the breccia. We see it within the class, the rocks in the breccia, along the margins of the class. And then at depth, we see some evidence of even potentially some stockwork, which could indicate a porphyry at depth. We're just not sure. It's
Yeah.
a very complex system, but really interesting to learn how the mineralization is found here in these different rock types.
When the drillers are happy, the geologists aren't. When the geologists are happy, the drillers aren't. So,
Yeah,
and
I
sometimes the
mean,
more complex rock is harder to drill, and get.
yeah, they're not a fan
So,
of the overburden, but I don't think any driller is. But they actually like drilling here, which is, I
yeah,
mean, we're town based. We're a
yeah.
20-minute drive from town. We rent a house in town. Our core facility is rented off a local who has property there, and so the drillers love it, and that's been really important, especially during COVID, to be able to retain workers.
Yep.
We haven't struggled with that, and we've been super lucky.
Some big holes too, right? And this year, BK 2275,
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
half a
So
gram, almost
that's
400 meters.
exactly. Yeah. And within that, over a gram per ton gold equivalent, 63 meters. So these are some pretty sizable
And
intercepts. A lot of it is right from surface or near surface,
near, totally near,
within
yeah.
like 50 to 100 meters of surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really shows the potential here.
Wow. It was always mind-boggling for me to look at the Blackwater, how many holes and stuff too.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
and Chris Leslie, the geologist that was with Richfield, I think he said their discovery hole was, I think, in the hole 70 or 80. Like they had drilled a lot before they really
59, they say here.
59. Okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
So they had drilled a lot before they realized that this could be something. And so it just goes to show, if you stick with something, it could grow.
Well, and drilling on a grid too, and a lot of vertical holes, right? Like these colored lines are holes
Yeah,
with
yeah,
grades on them.
with the different
Uh,
grades. Yeah.
would you guys, is that more of a resource definitions phase campaign? Not there yet?
So we did do that in the fall of 2021. We
Okay.
wanted to do more of a grid-based approach. So if you go to the slide just above that one,
Yep.
you can see, I mean, there's evidence of it. It's kind of, we did
Yep.
this kind of grid-spaced, northeast or southwest trending holes. That was really great geologically to learn about the different rock types, about the structures. We
Yeah.
did oriented core, so we were finding out where these
Wow.
faults and shear zones were.
Yeah.
So it was very important for us. I think now what we're focusing on is trying to chase up some of this mineralization. Like, where does this go?
Adding ounces.
Stepping out. So we're doing everything. I think right now we're doing more targeted drilling.
Hmm.
And I had mentioned with another person that we use an XRF
Yeah.
gun, and so that's that instrument where you zap the rocks, and you can find instantly zinc or other base metals, and zinc
Yeah.
has a strong association with gold. And so what we're finding is we can, you know, use the XRF on all of these samples and find out right away, is there zinc in here? You know, should we shut down the hole? Should we step out again? Should we move to a different location? And so we get some of that real-time information that helps guide our exploration.
Interesting to scroll back through this and see that they did Titan IP at Blackwater
Okay, yeah.
sometime in the past.
Yeah, we tried a 3D IP survey, which is kind of very new and cutting edge.
Yeah.
We got some good results. It's difficult though at Buck, for example, a lot of the IP chargeability highs, which indicates sulfides, which then could indicate gold. It's very good at defining the disseminated mineralization, not
Yeah.
so much at finding that high grade vein hosted. So
Yeah.
we did have success, but not with the high grade, for example.
No, no, certainly. Well, and IP, it's pyrite. What does
Yeah,
it stand
pyrite and
for?
sphalerite,
But
which brings in the
what does
zinc.
IP stand for?
Induced
It's
polarization.
it's pyrite. Sorry. Sorry. But it's so in terms
Yeah,
of being frustrated and stuff like that, I don't, and the zinc, I'm sure it'll pink up the zinc like screaming.
it does. Yeah,
But
exactly.
and do you have mineralogy concepts really?
Yeah, we've done some petrology, we've done some mineralogy, geologically trying to figure out the different associations. We've done work on alteration, zonations.
Yep.
We're also doing some pretty detailed geochemistry work
Yep.
just to find out the different associations. So yeah, we're doing all that as well as the metallurgical test work. So we're not just
Yeah,
drilling
good work.
holes and, you know, hoping things will work out. We're doing the work in the background to figure out, you know, what's controlling mineralization, the styles of mineralization. Is it recoverable? Can it be mined?
Seriously, right out of the gate. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job. Number of meters this year?
So we drilled about 4,000 meters in the spring. We were planning about 5,000 meters in this current program. I think we're currently at about 3,000
Wow.
in about 8 holes. So yeah, the program's ongoing, and with the IP, the ground IP that we're currently doing at Urk and Eagle Eye,
Yep.
we could see the drill move down to some of these other targets and drill
Great.
these targets that have never been drill tested before.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is for sure. Yeah.
And what a time of the year for you guys to be doing this. Other people results slowly dribbling in and here you are hammer down.
Yeah, exactly. In the Golden Triangle, I think their season's pretty much over. The labs will start clearing out, and so our samples will hopefully get processed a bit faster too. That's another benefit of drilling off season is, you know, once everyone's samples have gone through from the summer, then, you know, it's a bit quicker. It's not quick, but it's a bit quicker.
And is there any sense that Irk could be zinc primary or no? We're still talking standard
I mean, we haven't drill
deposit
tested it
model.
yet. We're just doing sampling at this point. So we're seeing things like zinc and you know, there could be some lead as well. But yeah, we really need to do some drilling to figure out what ERC could be. The
Yeah.
IP will definitely help with drill targeting.
Always a fun exercise to kind of take what the shape of the Blackwater pit might look like and start to overlay it at different areas on your
Yeah.
project just for
Yeah.
for the sake of arm
Kilometer.
whirling.
Yeah.
It's amazing how big these things get so quickly. And then to take it to, to the active or the historical mines and all different aspects and compare things.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're already at a kilometer strike length just in terms of the mineralized footprint. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to be continuing to drill and try to expand that before thinking of putting a resource on that.
Well, good for you for checking recoverability studies too right off the bat. I think that's really essential.
Definitely. Our former CEO, Bob Willis, who's now senior advisor, he's a geological engineer. So he knows what we need to do to get tick all of our boxes to make this a good target project.
And the historical drilling, it always seemed like it was a little shallow, especially for the
Definitely.
bulk tonnage stuff you're talking about now.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
different
So a
game.
lot of those holes to the west of the creek area, that was, 50 to 100 meters depth. We've drilled, you know, 200-300 meters, even deeper than that. And so that's where we found the high grade as well, around the 200-meter mark. So it just had been underexplored. They were looking, I think, at one point for porphyry copper earlier, and then yeah, the price of gold just didn't make it really economic for these kind of grades. But what Blackwater shows us is it's definitely doable. There's a large amount of mineralization here.
And this is it. So there's still a fourth anniversary and a fifth anniversary.
Yeah, exactly. So we just
Cool.
passed the third anniversary, October 9th, I believe, or the 5th. And yeah, no, having a property vendor that is a big fan of the project is great.
And his share payments are set to go up too. How many shares out do you guys? 40 million, is it somewhere? 60?
Currently,
Yeah.
outstanding, yeah, we have about 77 million.
Yeah, no, it's 80. Yeah, it's more than what
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like 2 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We're
So
still pretty tightly held, but yeah, 77 million shares outstanding, fully diluted. We're just under 100,000. Yeah,
and so he's looking at another million shares there, which is over a percentage point as well.
yeah,
So he'll
yeah,
stay under 10 without any selling or anything. Just
yeah,
always counting, seeing where things shape out. And
yeah,
it's impressive that he's been able to put together that kind of share position, right? Because he didn't get
yeah.
it quite, there was the 4 million here on signing, but it wasn't, in the interim years, it was relatively smaller share payments. So
Yeah, exactly. And
that's,
we're going to be taking it to, we're going to eventually earn in and own
yeah.
this property outright. We really believe that there's a story here.
Well, and he's a bullish guy, right? It's amazing to see these project vendors who are investors and just this whole community that, we need
Yeah.
BC and Canada and all these places. So
Yeah. If you want to flip back to our share structure, I'll just go over that quickly.
sure.
So we did a financing in March of this year, $6 million. And so going into this program, we were sitting at about 4.5 million. We're going to be spending about 2 million. So we've already spent about 1 million of that. So this says 3.5. But when all said and done, at the end of this drill program, we'll be sitting at about 2.5 million going into Q1 2023. So we'll still have money in the bank. Market cap currently about 13 million. And then, yeah, we have some warrants expiring coming up in November and then February of next year. So that could be some additional money coming in as well for that.
And the share price is around
It's about 16 cents.
15, yeah.
Yeah. So there's been some selling, end of the year type stuff, which is not surprising.
Chaotic markets, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and I don't have much to say about the market right now, but
Interested.
we have money, and we are exploring, and so that puts us in a better position than a lot of companies.
It's interesting to think about what could happen on the other side of a bit of buying to fund those warrants if they were to be exercised by selling in the market. Sometimes there's a bunch of different opinion how people do these things, right? But some guys, they use the markets to fund their warrants, cashless exercise, stuff like that. And then there's other people who would know they'll just write the check. Thank you very much. So, and then, all the people trying to watch the stocks and guess what's going to happen. Those people, right? They may or may not know, particular to this situation, whether those warrants are more likely to hit the market or whether they're just likely to be funded by the investors themselves.
Yeah, and we got up to like 29 cents, a few weeks ago. At the end of last week, we're up to like 19 cents. So I mean, 25 cents isn't unheard of. We definitely picked it there, but
yeah, and I'd point out from my experience talking with some of the people here that they're more likely to write the check maybe than they are to sell in the market.
Yeah,
because I know some people, when they really want to accumulate a position, they don't want to be selling the shares really yet, because they have this vision of something big happening and they want to own as large of a position as possible if and when that happens. So
we're a great value right now. I mean, when we're active, we're exploration, we're going to have news flow. So yeah,
and kudos to them for finding you too. I had talked to Bob Willis there a couple of years ago and was impressed by him, and now with you, it seems like you're doing a great job here. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really trying to introduce the company to new groups. Bob was CEO. He's now senior advisor. I talk with him daily, so he's definitely still involved. We have Tukey Angus, our chairman, who is very, people have heard of him. He's a very significant industry player. And then as well, Christopher Leslie, I mentioned the geologist from Blackwater or from Richfield. So, I mean, we have a really strong technical team as well as a very strong, management and advisory board. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well done. Well done. Yeah.
So yeah, just, I mean, reiterating the milestones and what's happened. So in a short time, we've optioned the property. We've had, this is our sixth drill campaign, and yeah, we're just continuing along this exploration journey. Really this year though, focusing on the property-wide potential. We know there's something at Buckmain,
Yeah.
and let's see what else is on the property. And there's that
And
comparison with Blackwater. It's the same volcanic rocks, the same age and all of that. And so very similar.
and the kind of bigger question about the corporate strategic partner at some point,
Well,
those are,
yeah, that's been happening quite a lot. And, it's definitely something to think about. I mean, obviously we don't want to, well, not obviously, but we're not so interested in developing and mining this project ourselves. We would be looking for a company to come in and, when we get to that point, if we get to that point.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of strategic investment going on lately. Something
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah. And thinking about this timeline and what might happen in, the next year or the year after that, right? And where might a strategic want to come in, right? At what phase of,
Yeah.
and then versus opportunistic side, and do they come in on company equity side or they come in on project side?
Yeah.
Lots
I
of
mean, for
big
now we're
questions.
focused on just, expanding as much as we can and continue with exploration.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see where this takes us. But we think it's a very compelling story. There's a lot of great potential here, not only at Buckmain, but also on the large property.
Well, yeah, that's, and you said IP happening now.
IP at Irk and Eagle Eye Ground IP. We're drilling currently at Buckmain.
Yep.
So, the season is not over for us. We're still going. We've been lucky
Yep.
in that it hasn't snowed yet. So, we can still do everything that we did in the summer.
Yep.
Not to say that that'll stop the drilling, but at least it's easier for getting around when there's no snow.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you. Kudos. Again, we need more projects like this in BC here.
Definitely.
I think it's important time for projects that can kind of keep moving is
Yes.
one of the things that I see here, is that you've been able to make a lot of progress, looking at that timeline from my acquisition in 2019 to where it is now. It's covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly, and I think a lot of it's
definitely.
meaningful ground too. It's kind of relatively sophisticated stuff that sets it up nicer for the bigger players who want to come in, right? So
Yeah. We're definitely we're exploring, but we're also thinking of the future and how we can make things easier. Answer all our questions, do the
yeah.
metallurgical work, work on the permitting, First Nations, everything. That's our focus.
And your own experience at Barrick and different things too. Some of these,
Yeah,
I know we call them
I was with
super
B2
majors, or
Gold just
yeah,
recently, and Barrick and SRK, and yeah, I've been both grassroots to up to mining. So my
yeah,
experience is quite varied, as well as data management and so yeah, I have kind of a diverse skill set. This is a new role for me, but I'm very excited to share the story with potential shareholders and new investors.
yeah,
It's been really great to talk to the different people and share the story.
yeah. Good job with all the media appearances and everything so far.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of events and conferences, and I'll continue to do so, and on social media as well, just to introduce the company.
All right. Well, I should let you go. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
Goodbye.